Get this mic down. Hello, hello, and welcome. Welcome, Facebook friends. Welcome, YouTube viewers. Great to have you here. It's my 10:59 Facebook Live, YouTube Live broadcast coming to you most days of the week. My name is Henry Beyer, and today is Friday. So we have Friday Kaizen today. We also have the quote of the day and just a nice shove off to the weekend. This is, well, it's not the last weekend in February. It's the second to last weekend in February. Next weekend is the last weekend in February. But we are marching through winter here, and wow, there's been some crazy activity in the winter department this year. There's no doubt about that. Feet and feet of snow on the West Coast and snow in Texas. And, you know, that situation down there is crazy. I haven't been following it too closely, but I just saw this news headline about Texas being minutes away from being without power for a month. And I have a friend who lives in Austin and they have rolling blackouts. And it's just, you know, heart goes out to those people and what they're having to deal with right now. So, but today in Colorado, it's windy and sunny. That's not an uncommon occurrence. All right. So let's hit the quote of the day. This one is from a guy named Emmett Fox. There is a limit to how long I can make these banners. And I hit it today. Exactly. And I had to abbreviate Emmett's first name here so that I could get the whole thing in here. So here's the quote of the day. Until you can put your attention where you want it, you have not become master of yourself. You will never be happy until you can determine what you are going to think about for the next hour. So that's pretty heavy stuff. If you can't put your attention where you want it, you have not mastered yourself. And I have definitely succumbed to that many, many times. And it is just a challenge we have to keep facing every day. And there was something that popped in my head that I was going to say about that. Oh, for those of you who have not caught one of these before, and by the way, thanks to you replay viewers for catching this at a later date. And I really appreciate that. But for those of you who might be new to this Facebook Live, I do this quote of the day every time I come on, and the quotes are done in alphabetical order. And I started doing these Facebook Lives at the beginning of January. So we've already gone through the alphabet once, and now we're coming through it the second time, and we're back on, well, we're on the F now, and F for Fox. And these are just quotes that I've collected, and I have stacked. I have recorded alphabetically in some Word files, and so I just go back through them and just get the next E, the next F as I come across them. So I'm not picking these out for this particular day, but I think this is a great one. And if we can focus ourselves for second to minute, work up to an hour at a time, if we're able to do that, then we can take control of our life. If we're not able to control our attention for chunks of time, then we are basically at the mercy of what the world is. We're basically at the mercy of the world and all of the distractions and shiny baubles that are trying to claim turf in our attention. So this, I think, actually works really well with Friday Kaizen, because Friday Kaizen is the idea of making small changes over time that ultimately result in big changes. So Kaizen is really the idea about never-ending improvement or constant improvement. And it's possible to make some big leaps, but making small changes every day will ultimately lead to big changes. I remember, I think it was Tony Robbins who I first heard this from, and he talked about like, imagine you are heading in this, this direction, right? Like this. And you decide you want to make a change of course. But if you make a 1 degree change of course, at first, it doesn't seem like you are making any, like not much has changed, right? Because the change is so little to begin with. But as you get further and further along, the distance between the direction you were going and just that 1 degree of change becomes greater and greater the further out you go. So you don't have to make a big, like, 180 degree turn or 90 degree turn to make significant change in your life. If you're able to do one of those, like, stop on the dime and turn around type of changes, and it's in the direction that you want to go, then, that's awesome. But if you want to make change, but making such a big change seems like overwhelming, then back it down to the smallest bit of change that you're willing to make. So, meditation is one of those things where sitting down for even just like 5 minutes and trying to quiet your mind could seem like it takes forever. And then an hour is just like, whoa, that's never going to happen. But if you chip away at it just a little bit at a time, then you make progress in the direction that you want to go in manageable chunks. It's the how do you eat an elephant idea, 1 bite at a time, right? A journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. You think about walking 1,000 miles, you're just like, oh my God, it's never going to happen, right? But taking 1 step at a time seems doable, right? And then the more you do that, not only do you build those muscles of whatever you are that you're in the new direction that you're trying to go, but you ingrain those habits as well, and they become easier over time to do. And then before you know it, you've accomplished the thing that you want to accomplish. So coming back to Emmett Fox here, and you will never be happy until you can determine what you are going to think about for the next hour. So if you can sit down and for an hour, maybe you have to start 1 minute at a time. Let's say it's going to be, there's been a book or something like that, a book is a good one, because a lot of people don't read, but, and you want to start reading a book. So first day you read for 1 minute. The next day you read for 2 minutes. If you do that, pretty soon you'll be reading for 30 minutes, and then you'll be reading for an hour, and you'll be absorbed in that. And if hold on a second. I had a weird, whatever that was. And that control of your time, if you're able to control those small moments of those small moments of your life, then you are able to control your whole life. It's when you're not able to control this moment to moment activity that is when your life becomes out of control, or is like drifting like a unmanned ship at sea. So to get where you want to go, controlling the smallest chunks of time in your life, one after another, is how you go about doing that. So thanks, Emmett Fox, for the quote of the day. Until you can put your attention where you want it, you have not become master of yourself. You will never be happy until you can determine what you're going to think about for the next hour. This comment about being happy, I notice this with myself, where when I'm actually like doing something like this, and my mind is engaged with this, and I'm not thinking about other things in my life, and I'm feeling productive and, doing something positive that I feel it has value for me and maybe for others, I feel good. Like I am happy doing that. But then it's like when I'm moping around, I don't really have anything to do, and my son's hitting me on the head with a pillow, and we have no sort of direction to our activity at the time. That's when you start to feel like that's when you start to get grumpy and cranky and stuff like that. So you engage your time with valuable stuff that you consider valuable. That just makes you happy doing that sort of thing. So again, thanks Emmett Fox for this. And now let's jump on to, hold on, let me get rid of this thing. Let's just talk about this recap, because we already talked a little bit about Friday Kaizen with the Emmett Fox quote. So let's sort of talk about that in relation to the topics of this week. And I mean, these are probably two topics that what the topics are: core exercises that you should be training to get strong, to get physically strong through resistance training, and the sort of reps, sets, and rests that you might want to use depending on your goals. And I just thought it'd be a good idea just to recap that, because these are the small elements. These are the small improvements, that you can make on when you go to the gym, that will help you reach your goals faster. So as a reminder, February has been planning month. We have one more week of this, and planning is, I have something in my eye. It's kind of really bugging me. Planning is, to me, the linchpin of your training program, because there's many different ways to train. And so like the exercises, the rep and set schemes, those are important, but they're only important in terms of your plan and your goals. So part of your plan are the goals that you have for your health and fitness. But the plan lays out how you're going to go about training for the week, for the month, for 3 months, for 6 months, for the year. Okay. I mean, you can set out a plan at the beginning of the year and have it take you all the way through to the end of the year, 365 days. If you're an Olympic athlete, your plan is 4 years long. If you're a young buck, if you happen to be, 12 years old and you're watching this and you have aspirations to be an Olympic athlete, your plan is your current plan is probably 5 years long, because you're building up to the point where you are physically at the point where you can start training in a way that will prepare you for the Olympics when you're in your early to mid 20s. So then you have a 4-year cycle there. So when we think about planning, it can be as short as just what your single training session is on a given day, and move out to the week, to the month, to the what they call the mesocycle. Well, the mesocycle is roughly about a month to a macrocycle, which could be anywhere from a couple months to a year. And so planning is critical for you reaching the goals that you have set for yourself. And that's whether or not you are planning on competing in some type of event where there's an actual deadline, or it's just for how you want to construct your training for it over the long term. And so the plan is critical, right? So that's why February has been planning month. And I mean, the plan not only saves you time, because when you get to the gym, you spend a little bit of time working out your plan. And then when you get to the gym, you know exactly what you're going to be doing on a given day, right? It saves frustration because you're not, when you show up at the gym, you are not wondering like, oh, well, what should I do today? And then you end up just kind of doing whatever. Then the plan also makes sure that you're doing the right things. So if you end up going to the gym and you don't really have a plan for what you're doing, you might end up doing the same types of things over and over again, because we tend to, as the human species, gravitate to the things that we like to do and not do the things that we don't like to do, right? And so the plan will help us stay on track to what we're going to do, or to the goals that we want to reach, right? So the plan is super important. And we've talked about a lot of different things over the last couple of weeks. But this week we talked about core exercises and reps, sets, and rest periods. So let's just quickly recap that. So core exercises are sort of the main exercises you're going to be using in your workout or for a training cycle. So, and then assistance exercises are just some backup exercises that you might use to help balance out the main exercises, those core exercises. They might be exercises that you're rehabilitating an injury, and they might be exercises that you're using to what they call prehabilitation, which is to sort of help prevent injuries from happening. Sometimes when we focus on a certain type of activity, like a pushing activity like this, our back doesn't get as much attention. So we might do some assistance exercises that will help with the back, so that we don't get shoulder injuries because all we're doing is, pressing like this. So the assistance exercises tend to be more single joint exercises, smaller group muscles, or single muscles, like, bicep curls, even though your bicep, has three different muscle bellies and whatever. Same thing with the triceps, but you generally think of those as being potentially you're doing assistance exercises for like a smaller group of muscles, while the core exercises tend to involve larger groups of muscles. Like when you're doing pull-ups or squats or the bench press, you're just recruiting more muscles from the body in order to do those core exercises. So powerlifting has identified 3 big lifts: the squat, the bench press, and the deadlift. And I think the order that they do them in is they do the bench press first, the squat. I know they do the deadlift last, and I think the squat comes before the deadlift, but the bench press might be put in between those. So squat, bench press, deadlift. I'm not exactly sure the order of those, but it could be bench, lift, squat, deadlift. Anyway, the fact is those are the three big exercises that produce the greatest amount of strength. And so they are good exercises to have in a program. You could add in overhead press, which is pressing overhead, and some people say that the overhead press is more practical, has more practical applications for everyday life. The bench press is the best upper body strength builder because of the amount of weight that you can lift. I actually think, like, with equipment, with assistive equipment, that there has been an over 1,000-pound bench press. I think that has happened. So that's an unbelievable amount of weight, right? But how often are you going to be pushing around 1,000 pounds? But the overhead press, because you're reaching up above your head, has it can improve shoulder mobility. It can help you grab things off of shelves, put things up. So it has a little bit more versatility in terms of transfer to or carry over to everyday life. And then another exercise that often gets put in the core exercises is, of these big 4 to 5 core exercises, is the power clean, because the power clean helps develop power. And the difference between strength and power is strength is your ability to move a large amount of weight. So if you can lift 200 pounds off the ground one time, that's sort of like your max strength. Power is being able to move weight quickly. So you wouldn't be able to, it might take a super human effort and a fair amount of time to lift up that 200 pounds. But if you went along and lifted 100 pounds, you might be able to just jerk that 100 pounds off the ground really fast. And that's power. Actually, it was either this morning or last night, I was reading, and I think around 30%, this is what they said, 30% of your body weight, or 30% of your max weight, I think is what it was, is that's like your sweet spot for power. That's when you can generate the most amount of power, is in that range. So because the power is related to the speed of movement more than it is to the weight. So you're actually able to generate more power when moving lower weights at a higher speed than you are moving a heavy weight at a lower speed. But anyway, so the power clean is another one of these core exercises that can be put into there, because power tends to be a more transferable quality compared to max strength. As I said, max strength is lifting the heaviest object possible. But how often does that really happen, like in everyday life? It's more likely that you are moving, like, especially in sports, right? Sports is more about power than it is about max strength. That depends on the position. And obviously, if you're a power lifter, max strength is your goal. But for so many sports, team sports, power is the thing. And so you want to be working on some power. So that's why the power clean is considered one of these core exercises. There are other core exercises, and it depends on what you're trying to achieve. But in general, if you're just coming at fitness from a general perspective, you want to work on your squats, your deadlifts, bench press, overhead press, and some type of power exercise. And these can be done with or without weights. They can be done with barbells. They can be done with dumbbells. They can be done with kettlebells. It's not that you have to use one particular instrument. A combination of instruments is a nice way to achieve these. But the core exercises just says, okay, this is what I'm going to be focusing on. And it may be that for a particular period of time, let's say the next 6 weeks, I'm going to focus on my overhead press. That's going to be my main exercise. Or maybe I choose an upper body and a lower body exercise. I say, okay, I'm going to work on my deadlift and my overhead press for the next 6 weeks. So that would be your core exercise for that period. And then after that, maybe you switch and say, okay, I'm going to work on my squat and my bench press. And I'll actually use like the deadlift and the overhead press. Maybe it's just secondary exercises. I'll just do maintenance weights for those for like the next 6 weeks. And I'll focus on the squat and the bench press as my as my big lifts in this cycle. So this, I mean, you can just tell from me talking about this that there's so many choices to make in terms of how you structure your program, that just showing up at the gym and moving some weight around is sort of a poor approach to reaching your goals. Having a plan, laying it out, saying these are the qualities that I want to work on. And when I talk about qualities, you can talk in general, you can think about strength, you can think about hypertrophy, you can think about power, you can think about endurance, strength, endurance, body composition could be a quality, flexibility could be a quality. So these are different qualities that you want to think about when you are picking, when you're thinking about how you want to train. So just saying, okay, I'm going to get fit, that's awesome, because I think you should be doing that. But then beyond that just opens up this whole new universe of possibilities to you when you say that. And just going out and getting some road miles, sure, that's good. But in my mind, you want to have some type of plan on how you want to approach that, because people get injured a lot just going out and hitting the road miles. And then, I want to build some muscle. So that's hypertrophy, and that's going to take some planning to figure that out. So let me tilt this down just a little bit. So the point here is, the major point is you want to plan your training, and thinking about what lifts at a particular point in time are going to be your core lifts and what are going to be your assistance lifts is part of that. And there's lots of different assistance lifts or ancillary lifts or auxiliary lifts or whatever you want to call them. And they have different purposes. But for your core lifts, you want to stick to these big multi-joint, multi-muscle exercises that are going to give you the biggest bang for your buck. For me, I have lots of friends who like to do lots of outdoor activities, and they don't want to spend a lot of time in the gym. So they don't want to be doing tons and tons of exercises. They want to get the biggest bang for their buck, right? And so doing these big core exercises, bench press, squat, deadlift, overhead press, power clean, those are going to be the exercises that are going to give you the results the best. And body weight exercises are great. Barbell exercises are great. Dumbbell exercises are great. Kettlebell exercises are great. These are all great. And actually, if you can combine them in different ways, then you can get a really nice sort of well-rounded, holistic training effect from doing that, because they all have pros and cons. One of those is not superior to the other. They're different, and they may be superior in other areas and less good in some areas. One example is body weight squats. You can definitely use, or body weight training, you can definitely use to build a very strong body. It has a particular weakness in that it's not that great at building back strength, because it's just hard to work the muscles of the back, the erector muscles of the back, without using some other type of weight, like the deadlift, ideally, because it's really the best lift for your back, or squats. Doing squats is good for your back as well, but the deadlift is superior in that regard. And so it's a good combination. If you want to do body weight exercises, that's awesome. I totally think that's a good way to go. But if you're going to do that, you should think about including some barbell exercises. And if you want to do barbell exercises, that's awesome. Barbell exercises, they're huge advantage of barbell exercises. You can really manage the weight progression, right? The dose, some people call this the dosage. You can handle the dosage with a barbell. You can really manipulate that a lot. So that can help. That's sort of an advantage of using the barbell. But not everybody wants to use barbells, or some of the disadvantages are it can cause, like, it's all bilateral lifting. So then it can actually cause some asymmetries because you're just doing bilateral lifting the whole time. So then dumbbells and kettlebells can be good because they can be more unilateral, and you can work on asymmetries that you have in your body. So all these tools have advantages and disadvantages, and finding a way to knit them all together based on your goals is a smart thing to do. Okay. So we spent a lot of time on core exercises. Let's quickly recap reps, sets, and rest. So you manipulate reps, sets, and rest based on goals. So if strength is a primary goal for you, you're going to be wanting to do sets of 1 to 6 reps. And hold on, let me pop this open because I didn't write this part down and I don't want to totally blow it. And the set range is going to be 2 to 6 sets there. And then the rest is going to be 2 to 5 minutes between sets. So when they talk about the rest period and the set, when they talk about the sets, they're only talking about your work sets, not your warm-up sets. And then the rest periods are 2 to 5 minutes, and that's between your work sets. I wouldn't take 2 to 5 minutes between warm-up sets. Usually what I do when I'm warming up is I do the first warm-up weight, and then I get up, I change it, I put on the second warm-up weight. If I were training with a partner, I would do my warm-up weight. Here, it would be nice to have a partner that's using similar warm-up weights, or instead of using percentages of weights, you just use fixed amounts of warm-up weights for what you're doing. And if you're the weaker of the 2 lifters as a pair, then when you hit you would just go up with those fixed number of weights until you hit your work set weights. And then you would do that. And with a partner, it would work nicely because as you change weights and things like that, that would give you the amount of rest that you would need. But for warm-up weights, the whole purpose of what I was saying is that for warm-ups, I typically don't take set rest breaks. I just, however long it takes me to change the weight, that's what I do. And then once I get to the work sets, and the work sets are the weight that you're going to be training for that day. Sometimes it's called top sets. And those are the sets where you take the breaks. So for strength, we're talking about 1 to 6 reps and 2 to 6 sets for that. For power, which again is strength displayed quickly, you're doing fewer sets, 3 to 5, or fewer reps, 3 to 5 reps. This is for general population. They do break out the number of reps. They do 2 reps, but we're not going to talk about that because for most people that's not necessary. For most people, 3 to 5 reps and 3 to 5 sets is good for building power, and 2 to 5 minutes between rests between sets is the number there. For hypertrophy, 6 to 12. Hypertrophy is muscle building. So if your foot want to increase the size of your muscles, then you're going to want to do sets or reps that are 6 to 12 reps per set, and then 3 to 6 sets of that. And the rest periods are shorter. They're 30 seconds to a minute and a half. So the compressed time frame in hypertrophy means that your muscles don't recover fully. And it's that lack of recovery that assists in sort of the metabolic conditions, the like intercellular conditions that help promote the building of muscle. And then for muscular endurance is different from cardio endurance. Okay, so just understand this. So muscular endurance is equal to or greater than 12 reps, so like 13 reps and 2 to 3 sets of that. Now, we did talk about Dr. Thomas Delorme a little bit. He came up with a strategy for sets and reps and the total number of reps. And for him, the total number of reps would range from 15 to 30. I mean, that's a 100% increase, right? But if you're working into that range, you're going to be in the right range for building strength. You're going to be in the right range for building hypertrophy. And this is per exercise, per workout. So like if you do like a 5x5, and this is one thing that I've read, that like if you're interested in strength and hypertrophy, one way to approach it is you keep your sets within the strength range, so less than 6 reps, and you just add on sets after that, right? If you're more interested in hypertrophy, you're going to go for sets with bigger reps. But even like 3 sets of 10, that's right in there, right? 3 sets of 10 is right in there, and you're in that number range from the Delorme of 15 to 30 reps total per exercise per workout section. So, I mean, you could do 6 sets of 12, and then you're up to 72 reps, right? And that, I mean, that could be the case for a more advanced lifter. As a less advanced lifter, you going to that higher rep range is probably not going to be the best idea unless the weight is light enough. And then you might be defeating the purpose, because the other thing is that for these rep ranges, there's also a weight percentage that you want to be working at, right? So for building these different types of qualities, power, strength, hypertrophy, strength, endurance, you're going to be using different weights for that. So in general, as the number of reps comes down, the weight goes up, right? So, a weight that you can do 10 reps with, or sorry, let's go at it the other way. A weight that you can do 3 reps with is not the weight that you can do 10 reps with, right? The weight that you can do 10 reps with is going to be lighter than the weight that you can do 3 reps with. And so each one of these rep ranges, in terms of strength, power, hypertrophy, strength, endurance, also is related to intensity ranges. And since I brought it up, we'll just zoom back here and give you the rough percentages here. Let me see if there's a good diagram in here of what those intensities are. So intensity was one of the things that we talked about last week in terms of weights, because that is one of the things you have to consider when you are. Okay, so just while I'm looking for that, training frequency. So a beginner might only want to train 2 to 3 days a week. An intermediate lifter, and the intermediate is based on. That's a whole different discussion. We're not going to get into that. For most people, I think if you're just starting out a strength training program, you're a beginner, and you're more than likely a beginner. And so 2 to 3 training sessions a week is where you want to be. Now let me just step 4, exercise order, training load and repetitions. That's where we were, but that's not the bit on intensity. Was intensity in the chapter before this? I don't know. Anyway, So like there is like high intensity is like 85 and above, or like sub max intensity is like 90 and above. There's these different qualifications there. So when you're like in hypertrophy, you're going to be at a lower percentage rate, like 60 to 70% or 50 to 70% of one rep max is going to be like the weight you can use when you are doing, when you're going for hypertrophy. While when you're going for strength, you're going to be using a weight that's closer to your one rep max. So like within those rep ranges, so like they say 6 reps, that is, if you're going based on, your rep max, 6 reps is at 85% of your rep max. Okay. So so that's sort of, and that is that high to sub maximal, like a single rep that you can do, that's your maximal, right? And then sub maximal is like this 85, 90% and up. And then something that you can do 10 reps with, that's about 75% of your max, one rep max. So kind of getting off schedule, off track here, but I just wanted to say, just wanted to make you aware that those rep numbers are related to the amount of weight being lifted as well, right? So the more reps you're doing, the lighter the weight you're going to be using is, I don't know. That took me a long time just to say that simple sentence, right? The more reps you're going to be doing, the less weight you're going to be using. And based on those rep ranges, you are going to be focusing on a different quality, either strength, power, hypertrophy, strength, endurance. Now, strength endurance, I didn't say the rest period for the strength endurance. I just realized that. The strength endurance is you're going to be resting for under, equal to, or less than 30 seconds. So you come in, you do a set of 15 reps, and again, the sets are only 2 to 3 sets for strength endurance. So again, if you do 2 sets of 15 with a 30-second break in there, you are working on strength endurance. Okay. So that's the recap for this week of the core exercises. The ones to really be thinking about are squat, deadlift, bench press, overhead press, power clean. And those don't have to be, every time you train, you don't have to do every one of those exercises. In fact, the squats, once you reach a certain level in your squat, you could have your squat be like a warm-up exercise and focus on the deadlift, right? There's so many different ways to go about this, but I just want you to think, when you're structuring, thinking about your plan, thinking about getting fit, these are the lifts you want to be thinking about: squat, bench press, deadlift, overhead press, power clean, pull-ups. I haven't said pull-ups. Pull-ups oftentimes can be a core exercise, but oftentimes it's a secondary exercise for most people. Anyway, and then you have your reps, sets, and rest, and those are dictated by the type of goal that you have. Are you looking for absolute strength? Are you looking for power? Are you looking for hypertrophy? Are you looking for a combination of these things? Are you looking for strength endurance? It all depends on your goals, but you want to know what these rep ranges are so you're training correctly and making progress as you move along. And all of that relates to Kaizen, because the idea of progressive overload is to make incremental increases in what you can lift over time. And that is the idea of Kaizen as well. So weightlifting, resistance training, that fits in nicely with the whole idea of small improvements over time make big changes. So that's going to be it for today. Again, 45 minutes. I have no problem talking for 30 to 45 minutes. That is for sure. So I want to say thanks for you replay viewers for being here. And for anybody else who was on here during the live broadcast, if you got any questions, please let me know, and I will be sure to answer your questions. You can comment, you can write a comment, you can, here's a funny thing. I never switch the comments, but nobody ever comments anyways, at least not yet. We're young in this. People will start commenting someday, or they comment after the fact, or you can message me. On YouTube, you have to make a comment. On Facebook, you could actually message me if you wanted to, if you didn't want to make a comment. But all right, that's it for today. I hope you have an awesome weekend, a great rest of your Friday. It is about lunchtime here in Colorado, so we're going to be getting some snacks. And we will see you next time, which will probably be on Tuesday, because Monday is my son is at home from school on that day. And so doing one of these doesn't happen. The opportunity does not really arise. So we'll be looking at Tuesday. So have a great weekend, and we will see you next week. And that's it. We'll see you then. Cheers.